see you Monday, 3:45.
Kei te whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. Haere ake nei, police negotiators are still trying to talk down a man holed up in a Levin property for more than 24 hours, with nearby residents unable to go home. More than 25 dogs are rounded up in a small Northland town after a man died in a suspected mauling. Leave us out of it. Auckland businesses don't want a bar of a so-called Patriots protest tomorrow. Sick days have doubled. 101 k's of Waikato expressway put some small towns back on the map and others on the road to nowhere special. Record rainfall has topped up Auckland's dams at long last, but that does not mean super soaker showers. And the basketball comeback, 30 years in the making.
RNZ News at 5. Ahi Marie, good afternoon. I'm Evie Ashton. 80 residents of Levin face a second night out of their homes as a standoff with a man threatening to self-harm continues. Armed police remain on Bledisloe Street, where cordons have been up since yesterday afternoon. Jimmy Ellingham is there.
As nighttime approaches, Bledisloe Street is quiet and calm. A few police officers on the cordons are keeping people out, while officers with guns can be seen standing outside the man's house. Rumours are circulating that the man is armed or poses a bomb threat, but police haven't confirmed this. At a press conference this afternoon, Manawatu Area Commander, Inspector Sarah Stewart, said she couldn't say when the standoff will end.
Animal management teams have rounded up 25 dogs at the Northland property where a man was killed in a suspected dog attack. The Far North District Council says it can't be sure exactly how many remain on the loose. The man was found dead at the rural property in Panguru yesterday afternoon. Council spokesperson Dean Myberg says bulldog crossbreeds and neo-mastiffs are among the dogs taken to a shelter in Kaitaia. The search for the remainder continues.
In the order of 25 dogs have been rounded up. Very few dogs, approximately 3, and I'm guessing when I say 3 because it's really hard to tell given the circumstances and the events of yesterday. Some dogs did run off. We don't have an exact number.
Panguru residents are urged to stay away from stray dogs and report them to the police. A rescue pilot says the downed plane which was found in the southern Alps yesterday is crushed. A Westpac rescue helicopter located the light plane near Mount Nicholson yesterday after it failed to arrive in Rangiora. The plane has a solo occupant and there were severe winds forecast. Westpac rescue helicopter pilot Stuart Farquhar says he wasn't on duty yesterday but saw photos and videos of the crash site.
So the aircraft was intact, I suppose. It wasn't strewn across the McCoy Glacier. It was just pretty much in one place, but it was like it was crushed, really.
Stuart Farquhar says severe weather conditions mean search teams won't be able to reach the crash site until tomorrow or Sunday. Canterbury Regional Council says bad weather over the past month has left some river areas vulnerable and heavy rain overnight may cause more erosion. Met Service is warning of heavy rain on the west coast and the main divide tonight, which could bring high flows to Canterbury and Otago rivers and lakes. The Regional Council has issued a warning that high flows are expected in the Ashburton River tomorrow and overflows are possible. Severe gales are also predicted to hit many parts of the South Island. A camper van blew over in Southland this afternoon and strong winds led to flight disruptions and cancellations at Queenstown Airport. Gusts of up to 160 kilometres an hour are expected in exposed areas of the Canterbury High Country. And a Queenstown hotel manager believes staff shortages due to sickness are the worst he's ever seen. The country's workforce has been stretched over the past few months, with COVID-19 cases and an increase in winter illnesses leading to more staff sick days. Queenstown's Reese Hotel and Luxury Apartments has had about 15% of its housekeepers off over winter. Chief Executive Mark Rose says management are taking on additional duties to plug the gaps.
I worked a 78-hour week. I did 10 shifts in washing dishes, and I was doing housekeeping and driving the shuttle. Now, all of our management team have been dropping everything they're doing, stripping rooms, whatever it takes.
Mark Rose says the hotel is determined to maintain standards despite resourcing pressures. In sport, a Commonwealth Games gold remains within reach for the Silver Ferns, despite suffering a 10-goal loss to England in their final pool match in Birmingham this morning. The world champions were beaten 54-44 by the Roses, who are the defending Games champs. The loss means New Zealand now play Jamaica in the semi-finals tomorrow night, after Jamaica beat Australia 57-55. Silver Ferns coach Dame Nolene Taurua knows her side can't afford to let the loss get them down.
The most exciting thing is that any team can beat anybody on a given day. And I think these top four is massive, for all of us. So we've got to lick our wounds from today. There's some clear lessons that we need to learn, and we need to get ourselves ready.
Meanwhile, Australia squash player Donna Lobbin must beat her husband, who's representing Scotland, to remain in the hunt for a gold medal. Lobbin and her cousin are the defending mixed doubles champs and will play Greg Lobbin and Lisa Aitken from Scotland in the quarterfinals. And All Blacks coach Ian Foster is demanding his side man up when they play the world champion Springboks in South Africa on Sunday morning. Foster's adamant he can help the side arrest a horror run of form that includes 4 losses from their last 5 tests.
It's about the team manning up. There's an edge. We know we can play better, and so manning up, we'll always man up. That's not the issue. You've got to be smart and you've got to be physical, and you've got to have a pretty good combination of both.
That's the news.
Tomorrow morning, going back to Kabul was a risky enterprise for reporter Lynn O'Donnell. She and her New Zealand-based colleague Masood Hosseini say they can never return. The song Hallelujah has acquired a life of its own and a biopic, in which its writer Leonard Cohen looms large. I'll talk to the directors. And award-winning journalist Patrick Radden Keith on some of the rogues he's investigated. Ko Kim Hillaho, join me tomorrow morning from 8 on RNZ National.
You're with Lisa Owen next on Checkpoint. Right now, the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Saturday. From Northland to Taumarunui, including Bay of Plenty and the Central High Country, areas of fog again tonight, cloud increasing tomorrow. From Gisborne to Wairarapa, fine today, cloud increasing tomorrow with late rain in Wairarapa. From Taramaki to Wellington, partly cloudy with isolated showers, areas of rain from tomorrow evening. Looking at Te Waipounamu, from Bulla to Fiordland, rain with heavy falls in Fiordland, spreading northwards this afternoon, easing to a few showers from the south tomorrow. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, heavy rain developing about the main divide this afternoon, rain spreading over the Canterbury High Country this evening and elsewhere tomorrow, and then easing from the south. Gale norwesterlies, severe in exposed places, easing tomorrow. Otago and Southland, scattered rain developing this evening, clearing tomorrow morning. Gale norwesterlies, severe in exposed places, easing tomorrow. And for the Chatham Islands, Rikohu, becoming cloudy, isolated showers tomorrow. It's 7 minutes past 5. I'll have the latest news headlines and traffic news for the main centres at about 20 past 5.
Nā mihi iwi, tēnā koutou katoa, no mai haere mai ki Checkpoint I tēnei rā, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. Coming up, dozens of dogs are rounded up in Northland where a man died in a suspected dog attack. But as we go to air tonight, negotiators remain at the scene of a standoff in Levin where a man has been holed up at a property for more than 24 hours. 80 residents of Bledisloe Street in the Horticulture town have been forced out of their homes as police negotiate with the man in what they describe as a self-harm situation. It comes as the man posts news stories about the ongoing situation to social media, with police confirming they attended an incident earlier this week at the same house. Manawatu reporter Jimmy Allingham and cameraman Angus Drever are in Levin.
Residents inside and outside the cordon all say the same thing. They hope the standoff is resolved and everyone can go home unhurt. Dylan LaRoche, who lives along Bledisloe Street, echoes this sentiment.
It's pretty scary at the moment, but should be away soon, so hopefully everyone stays safe and all that, so it should be good.
Many rumours are circulating, with some residents saying they've heard the man at the centre of the standoff has firearms, but police haven't confirmed this. Nads, who lives on the street, says she was told the cordon's in place because of a bomb threat.
What do you guys think about living right next to the cordon?
Oh, disgusting. Yeah, so gross. Hopefully something gets sorted soon.
Nad says a police presence in the area is nothing unusual.
Stuff like this happens around here, yeah.
So there's police call-outs from time to time?
Yep, for sure.
But is this the most serious you can remember?
No, it was the guy that held his missus with a gun in the house down there last year, and they blocked off this street too.
Throughout the day, some residents have been allowed inside the cordon to gather belongings, feed animals, or, like Kathleen Clark, pick up her 2-year-old son, Kaiser Ray.
So I had to get him out. The police officer escorted me to Liverpool to chuck him over the fence. Yeah, lovely police officer.
Your sister's still in the house?
Yeah, no one. She's bored. She's bored. Got nothing. The one time she wants to leave her house, she can't.
At a press conference this afternoon, Manawatu Police Area Commander, Inspector Sarah Stewart, confirmed officers had previously been called to the property of the man at the centre of the standoff. She says police negotiators remain in contact with him.
We are communicating with the individual involved. We are speaking with him and very hopeful that we can all resolve this safely.
Sarah Stewart says there's much she can't say at the moment and there's no way of knowing when the standoff will end. Horticulture Mayor Bernie Wandin says Levin's been through tough times in recent months, with a tornado striking in May and flooding an ongoing problem on top of the Blenhersloe Street siege.
Obviously, our concern is for our residents, their safety and their welfare. We want to continue to support them and give them any assistance that they need.
Just outside the cordon, the Playford supermarket was last night evacuated by police, but duty manager Tasha Patel says they were allowed back today. He saw trouble on the street brewing earlier this week.
I think the problem probably start on Tuesday, look like, because on Tuesday around 11 o'clock I seen around 3-4 cars in the corner.
This afternoon, Blenhersloe Street remains chock full of police, including Armed Defender Squad officers, as the standoff drags beyond 24 hours.
25 dogs have been rounded up at the Northland property where a man was killed in a suspected dog attack yesterday afternoon. And the search continues for at least 3 more aggressive dogs in the northern Hokianga community of Pangaru as the police piece together exactly what happened. Katie Todd has the story.
Emergency services driving into the rural property yesterday afternoon were greeted by dozens of dogs, among them neo-mastiff crosses and bulldog crosses, adults and puppies. Some were vicious and the police report that one was shot. The Far North District Council's been using traps to round up the remainder, as General Manager of District Services Dean Myberg explains.
Our animal management officers have rounded up approximately 25 dogs, and those are being held in our animal shelter just outside of Kaitaia.
It's believed 3 dogs escaped and are still on the loose, but Dean Myberg concedes that number is a guess. He says exactly how many dogs were at the property to begin with, or whether they belong to the man who was killed, is unclear because they weren't registered.
We don't have an exact number, so we are endeavouring to retrieve those dogs or to assist the police in the retrieval of the dogs, and then we'll have a much better picture.
Only about 96 people live in Panguru. Kaikoe Hokianga Ward Councillor Moko Tipanya says it's an extremely worrying and tragic situation for the tight-knit community.
This is extremely horrific, and I really do feel so much aroha for Runaruna, which is a community just out of Panguru, but all of North Hokianga are a really tight-knit community, and this is just something that you'd never want to happen in your area.
Moko fears for tamariki wanting to play outside while dogs are still on the loose. He explains the area is surrounded by hilly, thick bush, which has complicated the search for the dogs.
It is extremely rural, surrounded by bush and mountains and rivers, and so if these dogs have gone to ground, then until they come back, it could be a real struggle.
However, Dean Myberg is confident they're not feral dogs, so they will come back to the property for food.
Obviously, these dogs are very well fed, I must say. The information that we've received is that the dogs are in very good condition, very well fed, and they will return. Obviously, being hungry, they will return for food to the house. So there are traps in place to get these dogs rounded up.
But it's unclear exactly what would prompt well-loved dogs to attack a human. The Bark Foundation teaches dog safety for free in Aotearoa. Its managing director is Heather Summers.
So most healthy, happy, well-loved and well cared for animals would sit more so in the bite category than attack. The attack category is more primal, it's survival, and it's usually triggered by instinct, a lot more of a physical response.
The incident adds to a history of animal management problems in the far north. Last year in March and April, dock tracks on Cape Reinga had to be closed due to packs of feral dogs. Then in September, feral dogs were blamed for the killings of dozens of goats and sheep on farms near the Cape. Panguru residents are urged to stay away from stray dogs and report them to police.
Leave us out of it. Auckland businesses don't want a bar of a protest planned for tomorrow and led by Brian Tamaki's Freedom and Rights Coalition. They're calling it a Patriots March and a gathering in the Auckland Domain before heading off with the route not yet public. Last time, though, about 1,000 protesters spilled onto the inner city streets and clogged the southern motorway, closing it to traffic, disrupting trade in Newmarket, one of the city's busiest shopping destinations. Local Business Association boss Mark Knopf-Thomas says they don't need a repeat.
2 weeks ago, we had the protest on the Saturday, had a material impact, especially on our small business owners, in the side streets and laneways, the ones owned by mums and dads who are sort of following their dreams to have a business. Some of those stores had an immediate drop-off in trade and zero sales in the afternoon. And the problem with that is that Saturdays for our small businesses in particular, it's the busiest day of the week when they make most of the money to get them through to pay for all those fixed costs. And the background to that is that, we've passed all the COVID relief payments, that's all gone. All of our rents have gone back to normal. So we're now operating in a real world environment where, the rubber hits the road very quickly financially. So Newmarket's not famous for having cheap retail rents, it's pretty pricey. So when those days do get impacted by disruption, protest, road gridlock, roadworks, etc., it has a material impact on those small business owners.
I know it's going to be a couple of weeks before you actually know the figures, but normally, do you know how much your district would take on a Saturday?
Yeah, on a Saturday, we would do about 3.6 million on a good Saturday. And that hits the sort of between 11 to 3. We're probably running at around 350 to 450k an hour. So that's the really busy time for us. And it can get higher than that, actually. So the protest actually then right in the middle of our peak time. And I know the protest is only an hour, but actually the lead into it, the duration of it, and the time after it lingers around and has a big impact. When you've got Auckland transport signs across the motorway network saying avoid Newmarket, it isn't really ideal for a retail precinct on a busy Saturday.
So have you tried to, as they say, reach out to the protesters?
I haven't actually reached out to them this time round. I mean, I did try through a third party last year when we had the same situation, but I have had an email from them expressing they'd heard that I had some concerns around the protest and the impact on our business owners, and they've undertaken that they won't be marching through Newmarket or around Newmarket on Saturday. They'll be going in another direction, which is really good for us, and we're grateful that Newmarket will be saved from the direct impact. But actually, for Auckland Central, when I look at the neighbourhood around us, we've got Parnell, Uptown, Karangahape Road and downtown Queen Street, heart of the city areas, all of us are in the same boat. All of us have had the same problems over the last 2 years. All of us are in recovery mode from 2 years of the worst trade in modern history. All of us are back to paying full rent. All of us are working in a modern, real world environment now. So whether the protest goes north, south, east or west, it's going to be a problem for small business owners. Also, just to reiterate, we have no problem with protesting. We have no problem with the democratic right to do that. But I think take it to Parliament grounds in Wellington, because all it's doing is hurting small operators, really.
Even if they do go to another district per se, all you need is for one road to be cut off, though, Mark.
100%. And, our transport network is held together with a piece of string at best. So on Saturdays we get gridlock and that really has the butterfly effect across the whole network. So when one road is closed off or one off-ramp or one on-ramp, the ramifications are huge. And Saturday in Auckland these days is as busy as a rush hour on a Monday morning. It can get very, very busy. It doesn't take much for the motorway to get gridlocked and then the ensuing hassles that snarl up after that.
What kind of contact have you had with police, and do you have confidence that they've got this under control, particularly after last time?
Yeah, I have regular contact with the police. I had an email exchange with them today, just a quick update. They hadn't had any updates since I last spoke to them yesterday, but they were confident that they would be able to, try and contain it better and channel it in a more productive way than they had managed to last time. I think, to be honest, last time, with all credit to the police, they were taken by surprise. I think the protesters may have taken a different route to the one that they said they were going to take. I'm not sure how that happened or why, and whether it was planned or not, but that's certainly what happened. We just hope that this time it can be contained and channelled in a way to minimise impact on Aucklanders going about their daily business on Saturday.
Yeah, so if you could speak to those protesters directly, what is your message to them?
I just say that, many people have got issues with government policy, right? I've been very vocal myself in lots of ways about some of the things that the government have been up to the last couple of years. And I've been very public about that too. And I think a lot of people have got some issues with various bits and pieces. That's part of your normal democracy. But to express your frustrations is great, but all they're really doing is hurting the people they're probably thinking they're trying to protect, and that is like regular mum and dad Kiwis who are going about their daily business. But the material impact of one bad day's trade or 2 bad days' trade in a month, that's significant. And if you're a multinational brand, you can probably ride it out. You've got the resources and the resilience to see it through because you're part of a wider, bigger network. But if you're a one business operator with one shop or one cafe, bar or restaurant, a bad day's trade can be the difference between, being able to pay the school fees or paying for holidays or transport, petrol, all those things. It really is quite significant. So please, by all means, protest, but just be mindful of anything you're doing on the streets of central Auckland on a busy Saturday is going to have an impact on small business owners, period.
And that was the Newmarket Business Association's Mark Knopf-Thomas. It is 21 minutes past 5 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Homai o Waikato, we'd love your feedback on anything you've heard on the program this evening. Let us know your thoughts on that planned protest tomorrow, 2101 on the text, or you can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. The email address is checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. We've actually just got an email in relation to the earlier story about the police situation in Levin, the standoff with a man still in a house there after 24 hours and a negotiation team there. Residents got in touch to say, I live 650 metres from the cordon. It's scary with lots of unknowns and stories circulating on Facebook, claims of bomb threats, and he lists a number of other claims that are being made. And he says the police need to clarify what the threat is to the public, and New Zealand needs to improve our response. Residents, I think it's up to 80 that are out of their homes for a second night due to the situation there. Time to go to the headlines now. Ko iwi anō tēnei.
Kia ora, Lisa. Indeed, 80 Levin residents do face a second night out of their homes as police continue a standoff with a man threatening to self-harm. Rumours are circulating that the man is armed or poses a bomb threat, but police are making no comment on that. Animal management teams have rounded up 25 dogs at a property in Panguru in Northland, where a man was killed in a suspected dog attack. They include bulldog and neo-mastiff crosses. The Far North District Council says it can't be sure exactly how many dogs remain on the loose. The Canterbury Regional Council says heavy rain overnight may cause more erosion along rivers already damaged by bad weather over the past month. Severe gales are also predicted to hit many parts of the South Island. All of Auckland's western dams are full after the country's wettest July on record. Watercare says it's welcome news after the region's record-breaking drought in 2020. And the Ministry of Education has met with members of Gloria Vale about reopening the community's school, which has been closed since Tuesday due to staff shortages. The police have been investigating possible abuse at the school. Those are the headlines. Looking at traffic in Auckland, the southern motorway is closing tonight from 10 p.m, northbound between Drury and Papakura. Further down the North Island, State Highway 4 between Manawatu and Whanganui has been closed because a truck has rolled between Ongarue Waimiha Road and Kopaki Road. And in the South Island, State Highway 8, Twizel to Lake Tekapo, a strong wind warning is now in place. Take extra care. I'll update those headlines and traffic at about 5:40.
Kia ora rā, e ho. It's a project 30 years and billions of dollars in the making. Now the completed Waikato expressway is set to change the face of the region's towns and villages, for better or worse. The new motorway from Auckland to Tiro is likely to cut 35 minutes off your trip, so an hour and a half instead of 2 hours, bypassing some towns along the way. At the bottom of the route, Tiro locals are quietly hopeful it'll help their businesses bounce back after some struggled and even shut down due to Auckland's lockdowns. But what about the fate of those who will now lose trade that comes with State Highway 1 traffic? Our reporter Nick Trubridge and cameraman Nick Monroe hit the road.
Get your motor running. Head out on the highway. Looking for adventure.
Welcome to Waikato's new Golden Mile, or 63 miles, 101 kilometres of smooth $2.4 billion tar-sealed expressway, to be exact. At its foot sits the tiny town of Tiro, population barely 800, now suddenly pit stop number 1 on a seriously speedy trip south of the Bombays. This isn't your usual GoPro-heavy highway preview. We've come to see what the locals think of the road that leads to them.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
As a mother, put your mind at rest that little bit more?
You do worry about it every time they leave. I always used to say, give me a call when you get back, even though they're adults. But yeah, you do kind of worry. But no, not so, yeah. No, I know it's an amazing little expressway there.
Oh, I love it. You know, people leave Auckland and first town they hit is Tiro. So I think it's great for our little town.
Paul Andugula has owned Cabbage Tree Cafe for 7 years. There's been some dark times over the last 2, because when Auckland's barricaded in, well, Tiro doesn't exactly boom. At least 2 cafes like his closed for good before the road was finished.
When the borders were closed, we realised that the Auckland, 70% of our business is from Auckland. Yeah. So more people will travel, more accessibility. So that's good for this town.
The Cabbage Tree sits basically empty on a weekday morning, but Mr. Andugula is hopeful that big carriageway to the north will change things with its headline promise to spit Aucklanders out at Tiro 35 minutes quicker than before.
We are happy to serve them. Please come to us and generate more business for us. Yeah, we are a little town and it's lovely. Lovely to see you all. Yeah, sometime and later.
Around the corner we drop in on Notting Hill, the homeware store that appears to be a major player in this modest town. We count at least 2 shop fronts. Store assistant Cassie Winnikere commutes from the south near Tokoroa. There are, she says, mixed opinions here about the big road to the north, but she's not fazed.
We're much busier. It's really good for our business. But I do feel sorry for the people on the main road because it is so busy. And I think it's quite hard for us because we do have a store across the road. So when people are coming to our store on this side of the road and having to cross over, it's quite hard to get across. It would be nice to have a pedestrian crossing. But yeah, I'm finding it really good.
But not everyone's happy here in Tiro. Some people didn't want to come on camera in fear of upsetting the apple cart. But they say the expressway, well, it does little in terms of alleviating the town's infamous reputation as a bit of a bottleneck. Yes, there are a few features along Tiro's main drag that remain when some locals aren't sure they should.
You come through on a Sunday afternoon and everyone's driving real slow because there's 50 cafes here and then people are walking past that zebra crossing down there to go see the sheep and dogs. So that's got to change, but other than that, I think it'll be good to go again.
But back in our trusty white Toyota, it's Tata Tiro, time to motor north, 32 k's away. Cambridge awaits. The jewel of Waipa district, which the locals say is growing more attractive by the day, thanks in parts to that quad carriageway to the east.
It's literally making life so much easier and everybody's talking about it. So, you know, there are some concerns that some places will be marginalised, like, you know, Huntly, but that's not actually happening. What we're finding is that people are enjoying the quiet of the village life.
In fact, property brokers Cathy O'Shea, who spent well north of 20 years in the Waikato property game, says the biggest issue here is where to put people.
It's going to make Waikato, it has made a Waikato a go-to. We just don't have enough houses, properties. We're working 24/7. Every day is a Monday. Don't believe what you read in the paper. The expressway has just catapulted the area into the future.
So be prepared to pay. A couple of low-maintenance lock and leave pads behind us, well, they're easily fetching well north of $1 million.
This development behind us that we see, we've only got 3 left, and they're selling around the kind of 1.3, 1.4, more if you want to do some extras. But we just simply don't have enough. So it's very, very hard to find anything to buy in Cambridge.
But it's time to head even further north. What about those left behind?
At this stage, it hasn't had an enormous amount of effect in terms of actual turnover in that, but what it has affected is the volume of customers we're having. We're in a fortunate position that our customers seem to be spending a little bit more with us at present, but there is definitely less of them, probably a third less than there was a month ago.
We're in Gordonton, for years a bustling thoroughfare of holiday and long weekend traffic. Early August 2022, the village sits silent. A trickle of cars and stock trucks, a smattering of customers in the cafes. And they're the ones the farm shop owner Kevin Clark fears for. While he's a destination, others will miss the traffic.
We're kind of lucky. I'd hate to own one of the cafes.
But not all hope is lost for this tiny rural village in North Waikato. Far from it, according to the man who sells the finest veg in the village.
We would like to think that there is enough of us now with ourselves. We've got a little art gallery, the Mandarin Tree, a very good lighting business called Mr. Ralph, which brings a lot of people into the village. We've got Zeelong Tea Estate and things like that, Woodlands Estate, and lots of little things that actually bring people out here.
Then there's the locals, who, much like their neighbours in Huntly, don't seem overly bothered about no longer having State Highway 1 traffic trucking through their town.
I think people will take advantage of the fact that it's quieter and more pleasant, and it's a wee environment to make better as a pedestrian environment.
It just takes people from A to B so much quicker, and if they want to go to go off on and see Cambridge or Hamilton, they'll just go on the bypass and do that, and it's just a real good way to get from A to B.
T-Rail to our place, 35 minutes. It's amazing. Normally I would have allowed 45 to 50 minutes.
About time?
Yes, well overdue.
So it's time for our last stop. That lighting store Kevin Clark told us about, Mr. Ralph's, a space that wouldn't be out of place in Newmarket, proudly taking its position on Gordonton's main drag.
I think there will be some fears, and probably quite well-founded ones, so it's just about what we do moving forward to get people out here. So I'm feeling really good about it.
That's owner Rachel Williamson. She doesn't want to make light of the challenges everyone concedes could lie ahead for the village's eateries, but she sees an opportunity down the road.
For us, it was the perfect location because, it's just got that really cool vibe to it. People aren't stressed when they arrive. There's good parking, and it's easily accessible. I mean, even more so now. So, we're just about to move next door into a bigger premises. So that's how confident we feel in the future.
A stretch of highway 3 decades in the making, set to change the trajectory of the towns in its path, as well as those left behind. But for better or worse? Time will tell.
Well, that piece from our Nix, the video version will go up on our website. Apparently a few good pies eaten along the way with that journey. Let us know what you think of the Waikato Expressway, 2101 on text, or tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. It is 27 minutes to 6. Kia mau tunu mai. Stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. It's time to get to the business news now. Ko taku hoa I nai called Giles Beckford, live from Wellington. Giles, got a soap opera for us this evening. Take it away.
Here it is, Lisa. You will remember about 2-3 weeks ago, we gave a report about a company called New Zealand Automotive Investments. They're the people who operate the Too Cheap used car network. They've also got a finance operation as well. A bit of corporate biff in the boardroom where 3 directors, all independent directors, in other words, not tied to any specific shareholding interests, they resigned, saying they couldn't work with the major shareholder and another director, David Senna. And they talked about mistrust and the like. Mr. Senna hit back and said, I was going to dump them because I need people on the board who are competent and confident about being able to turn this company around and get it, improving its profits. And so he then lined up a few candidates to take their place at the annual meeting, which will be in a few weeks' time. Now, since then, a couple of the people he lined up have pulled out. And he's been scrambling around because the stock exchange rules say you need to have at least 2 independent directors on the board. Well, he's been scrambling. He found one new member, which was a veteran person, would be well known to many who follow business, Michael Stiasny. Well, this morning, just to cap it all off and to give it the real soap opera feel, the stock exchange's enforcement arm, they call themselves NZ Regco, they're responsible for implementing the rules, make sure they're being followed and calling out bad behaviour, if needs be, punishing it. So they've actually now said to the company, you have now until the end of business on Monday to explain what the hell is going on. Tell us how these 2 new people who have been proposed by Mr. Senna to fill seats on the board, if they're allied to him or if they're being supported and nominated by him, how can you call them independent? We want you to explain that. Oh, and by the way, we want the outgoing board, in other words, the members who are resigning, we want them to give their opinion as well because they're obliged to as the sitting board. So it's got, it's got elements of everything in there. There's intrigue, there's distrust, there's backstabbing, possibly a bit of deception and the like. There's more to play on this one. Interesting, though, that the stock exchange said basically today, enough is enough. Time for you to actually front up, explain everything to your shareholders, to the broader investment market. What they might do if they're not satisfied with the explanations, we'll wait and see. They could go as far as actually suspending them off the stock exchange, but that'd be a very rare step.
All those elements, Giles, and a guy called Senna, which seems, with a car company, all I can think of is Ayrton Senna, the famous race car driver.
It's Senna with one N.
Oh,
so,
there you go.
Not quite
okay.
Anna.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, companies that pack and fill it together stay together. Tell us more.
We had a company today, T&G Global. They're into fresh fruit and veg exporting production, part of the old Turners and Growers empire, for those whose memories go back that far. And they gave us their latest result. It was quite a reasonable profit of around $5.5 million, up 2/3 on the year before. So far, so good. Their revenue was a little bit down. But the feature, of course, as we've heard with a lot of these companies in the primary sector, horticulture in particular, couldn't get the workers, struggling with shipping delays. Of course, bad weather just goes without saying, COVID disruptions and the like. And what they did was saying, well, look, get out from behind your keyboard, Burt and Beryl in accounts. Right? We don't need a human resources department today. Get down to the packing floor. We need you to start putting the avocados into the trays, the kiwi fruit into the plastic holders, get them in the boxes. We need all hands to the packing sheds. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we had the same sort of story from Sea Lords, where the boss just in off the beach in his tie-dyed shirt and his jandals, off the plane, straight into the filleting floor. Right? He was happy because they couldn't get the labour, so they had a lot of hoki that was in the freezers needing to be filleted and packed. He was doing the same. Their office staff were doing the same. We've heard similar reports in quite a few other companies. So we figure you don't need corporate advisors to have a mission, vision statement and your well-being, charm, pet, or all the rest of it. Families that work together seem to stick together. I would think that if you're looking for a fillip in well-being, actually getting down on the shop floor might not be a bad alternative.
Giles, can we have a quick sprint through the markets, please?
A bit of an upsy-downsy day on share market, but in the end it was had a bit of a breather, down just 7 points, neither here nor there, still looking at around 3-month high. New Zealand dollar 62.9 US cents and 90.4 Australian.
Thank you, Giles. Giles Beckford joining us live from Wellington. Former Labour Party leader Andrew Little and the Prime Minister's Chief Press Secretary have appeared as witnesses in a trial about anonymous donations to the country's two biggest political parties. The Crown's case is that Labour, National, the Electoral Commission and the public were kept in the dark about donations allegedly split into smaller amounts to avoid disclosure rules. The trial in the High Court in Auckland is the result of a 4-year investigation by the Serious Fraud Office. Amy Williams was there and filed this report.
A one-off anonymous donation of $35,000, an auction the Crown alleges was a ruse, is the focus of the Labour Party case. The Crown says the party was told the donation was on behalf of 5 donors who paid money for paintings sold at an auction. But the money was transferred to Labour as one lump sum. The current Health Minister, Andrew Little, told the court he attended a fundraising event in 2017.
There were some performances, some speeches, I spoke. We then had the banner signing, the inevitable photographs and selfies, and there was an auction of sorts.
Mr Little says he attended the event to support the Chao Shan General Association's bid to host an international convention in Auckland, and he signed a letter in support.
I've subsequently been told it was intended to raise funds for the Labour Party. I wasn't aware of that at the time. The basis on which I was attending that event was to support the Chao Shan Association's bid for this world event.
The man the Crown alleges was the true donor, Yi Kun Zhang, founded the Chao Shan Association to support Chinese migrants and was its chairman at the time. He later received a royal honour. Mr Zhang is among 7 people, including former National MP Jamie Lee Ross, who are defending charges related to electoral fraud, 3 of whom cannot be named. In his opening statements, Crown lawyer John Dixon QC said 2 of those with name suppression in the Labour Party case were party insiders who put forward the sham donors as the true donors.
The party secretaries, the Electoral Commission, the public at large were kept in the dark. And that resulted in the true donor obtaining the benefit of having made a large donation with the knowledge of that insider, but without public disclosure of their identity.
Andrew Little told the court he remained distanced from donations and had advised other MPs to do the same.
I went to, for example, organised party auctions, knowing that it was a fundraising activity. I played no role in the collection of funds raised or donations sought.
The Crown will submit evidence showing 2 defendants with name suppression in the Labour Party case tried to cover up the split donation in 2020 when the party started looking into the matter. The Prime Minister's Chief Press Secretary, Andrew Campbell, told the court he asked questions within the party after receiving media inquiries.
There had been a donation made, but it took me some time to kind of work out the exact nature of that donation and how it came about.
Mr Campbell says he was not told the specifics of the donation by those inside the party at the time. The trial in Auckland is set to continue for another 8 weeks.
It's 13 minutes to 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Homai or whakaaro, do get in touch about anything you've heard on the program this evening. Let us know what's on your mind. You can text us on 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or the email address checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Time to go to the headlines. Ane a iwi mina pitipiti kōrero.
Tēnā koe, Lisa. Armed police remain on a street in Levin as a standoff continues, with a man threatening to self-harm in the Horticulture town. 80 residents of Bledisloe Street face a second night out of their homes. Rumours are circulating that the man is armed or poses a bomb threat, but police are staying tight-lipped on what's going on behind the barricade. Animal management teams have rounded up 25 dogs at a property in Panguru in Northland, where a man was killed in a suspected dog attack. The Far North District Council says the dogs taken to a shelter include bulldog crossbreeds and neo-mastiffs. Panguru residents are urged to stay away from stray dogs and to report them. Canterbury Regional Council says bad weather over the past month has left some river areas vulnerable and heavy rain overnight may cause more erosion. Severe gales are also predicted to hit many parts of the South Island. Strong winds led to flight disruptions at Queenstown Airport this afternoon, and a camper van was blown over near Mossburn in Southland. And latest figures show week-long absences from work due to sickness have doubled around the country, with COVID cases and an increase of winter illnesses. Some businesses have restricted opening hours as a result of the shortage. Stats New Zealand says for the quarter ending June, about 55,000 people had cited illness as the reason for being off work for a week. Those are the headlines. Looking at traffic in the central North Island, State Highway 4 between Manawatu and Whanganui remains closed after a truck rolled between Ongaurua, Waimiha and Kopaki roads. State Highway 8 in the South Island between Twizel and Lake Tekapo, a strong wind warning is now in place. Take care. And State Highway 96 in Southland, a crash has closed the road at Hedgehope near the intersection with Domain Road. Our next news and weather is at 6.
Thanks, Evie. After the medal rush of yesterday, things were much quieter at the Birmingham Commonwealth Games today for the New Zealand athletes. 10 medals yesterday turned into just one, a bronze today. Cyclist Georgia Williams finishing third in the women's time trial. But there's plenty of prospects to come, and not just at the Com Games. The All Blacks play the Springboks in South Africa on Sunday morning. To discuss all of this, we're joined by sports editor Stephen Hewson. Hey, Stephen, riddle me this. The Silver Ferns, right? Disappointment, lost to England, but doesn't that mean we get a better match-up?
Well, you might have thought so, wouldn't you? Given how they were, now they played Jamaica, but Jamaica beat Australia, so that tells you where Jamaica's at. And I don't know. It's all pretty close, isn't it? I mean, the theory was that beat England and you avoid playing Australia, but now England are going out playing Australia. New Zealand played Jamaica. It's all very tight at the top. I mean, the Silver Ferns are world champions. You wouldn't have expected them to go down by 10 goals to England, and it was all pretty even at half time. But then to fall away like they did in the final few minutes, 5 minutes, I think it's got netball fans sort of scratching their heads a bit, and no doubt Dame Nolene Todora, the coach, has got a few things to work on in the next sort of 12, 24 hours.
Eek, okay. And Tom Walsh, so no pressure for Tom Walsh then, eh?
Well, no pressure, that's right. I mean, he's a big favourite to win gold. He's the defending champion, of course, from Gold Coast 4 years ago. Also, Jack O'Gill, he finished 9th at the Tokyo Olympics. So maybe 2 New Zealanders on the podium for the shot put, you'd hope so. I mean, that would take us up to, well, if Tom Walsh wins gold, takes us up to 17 gold, which I think would equal the 1990 effort when Auckland hosted the Games. But, pressure can do funny things, and we just saw with Lauren Bruce in the hammer throw last night. She would have had the best, I think, distance of the New Zealand hammer throwers competing there, and she had 3 no throws, and so unfortunately she won't even compete in the final come the weekend.
Yeah, it's tough. They work so hard to get to this one event, and then it just comes down to seconds, doesn't it, and being able to perform in that moment. It is. It's really tough. I mean, imagine that, you've got your couple of years work behind you, and then it all falls apart. And I suppose that's, the joy and the sorrow of high-performance sport. You can be right at the top and enjoying, medals like Lewis Clareburt has, and where things have at or not. And speaking of falling apart, what a fantastic segue, the All Blacks, Stephen. So up against the Springboks, 3 a.m, isn't it, on Sunday morning? Is it worth getting up for? Well, we were talking about that in the office, what we were going to do. Be honest. In a sense, yes. There's more interest, isn't there? I mean, because we've. Yeah, I mean, how tense is it? I mean, we were talking about success in the intro there when you mentioned the Commonwealth Games, and I sort of had a little smile there because success is not something the All Blacks have enjoyed, is it? They've lost one of 4 of their one of their last 5 in their last 5 tests. They've just had one win. And the TAB's got the Springboks as favourite. It's one of the few times that's happened. You've got to say the Springboks are favourite. They're playing at home. The All Blacks are going in on the back of that lost series to Ireland. And so I think getting up and watching it, listening to it, is going to make for some real interest. I mean, can I see the All Blacks winning? No. And it just puts that pressure on Ian Foster so much more. I mean, they go one down,
And the comments we've had from Mark Robinson the last week or so was that, he's
Not
only
backing
there
his
till the end
man
of the...
past this, yeah?
Indeed. So, rock and a hard place for the All Blacks and their coach.
Give us your score, Stephen, speaking of rocks and hard places.
I'm going to go for a draw. Oh, there you go. I'm going for a draw. No, wait till come Monday. A draw. That would sum it all up, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, well, maybe we'll put an Auckland coffee on that. You reckon a draw? Okay, we'll see if you're right or not.
Well, who are you going for then, Lisa?
No, I'm going to win the coffee when you're wrong. So there you go.
When I'm wrong, oh.
Hey, thank you, Stephen. Have a great weekend on the couch. That is Stephen Hewson live from Wellington there, our sports editor. Let us know your reckons on that game, 2101 on the text. All of Auckland's western dams are full after the city's second wettest July in 60 years. It's welcome news after the region's record-breaking drought in 2020, where levels fell from 90% full to less than half in 6 months. Reporter Louise Tanuth and camera operator Marika Habazi paid one of the dams a visit to see for themselves.
This isn't something that happens often. Lower Huia Dam is spilling over. It hasn't looked like this in a while. 8 of the region's 10 dams are at capacity, carrying 95 billion litres of water altogether. While it's blue skies and perfect sun today, last month delivered over 250 mils of rain.
So what that means in the weather forecast going forward is that winter and spring is looking to be about normal or above normal rainfall, which again will mean that our dam's in a really good position going into summer.
That's Watercare's head of water, Suzanne Naylor. The water from this dam combines with the Upper Huia Dam and is then transported to the Huia water treatment plant, supplying about a quarter of Auckland's water to residents on the North Shore and West Auckland. But a full supply doesn't mean it's time to let standards slip.
What we're really noticing now is that demand is creeping back up to where it was before COVID, before the drought. So it's just a really important message to Aucklanders to really still continue to use water wisely. Water is still a precious resource and we still need to manage it really carefully.
Our dams came extremely close to being full last December at 99.4% full. After over 250 mils of rain in 12 hours last August, this dam, Lower Huia, went from 44% to full in just 36 hours. Chris Ord is part of the dam technician team who look after the 5 dams out here in the Waitakere area. A lot of his time is spent here in the hydraulic room.
We also gain a lot of data from the dams that come daily electronically, but part of my inspection is to measure these and make sure that they are both looking the same. What you have here with these hydraulic piezo's is change that can occur in the pressure inside the dam. The change of water level in the dam itself will present itself in these gauges, and we make sure that everything is above board.
After recent weather events, the team's been coming out here more often to keep an eye on things. But Chris says a full dam is what it's built for. With picture-perfect views, he's encouraging Aucklanders to come out and see for themselves why our water is so precious.
More people are using these spaces, which I really encourage people to do, because for people to come out here and see where their water comes from, it gives them a connection to what's coming out of the tap.
With winter and spring rainfall set to be above normal, total dam storage is in a strong position ahead of summer.
And you can check out that story and the pictures. They're pretty amazing. We'll put it up on our webpage. It is 8 minutes to 6. Kia mau tonu mai. Stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National, and a bunch of you getting in contact about the Waikato Expressway. This is the story earlier from our Nix. This person says, the Waikato Expressway is a beautiful piece of road. They should close it off one day a year so that we can walk, skate, skateboard, bike, scoot, wheelchair, mobility scooter our way along it. That from William. I kind of like that idea. What do you reckon? It's like when Alice, the tunnelling machine, got through the Waterview Tunnel and they let all the public walk through it on one day. Maybe we could do it. And Greg says, woohoo, you can now travel on the motorway from Karapiro to Puhoi with walkworth coming before the end of the year. Fantastic, reckons Greg. But Maureen, who's from up north, says it's really great to hear about the new carriageways and whatever down around Tiro, etc. But what about us up north? We do feel more than slightly ignored. Our potholes are so huge we could all disappear, never to be seen again, says Maureen. On the subject of this weekend protest that's being planned by Brian Tamaki and a group he associates with, Mike says That guy is utterly incapable of understanding that no one cares about his personal grievance with the Labour government. Get some focus. You'll never get broad support when you are anti-everything, says Mike. Paul says, why don't the police arrest Tamaki? Isn't he breaking his bail conditions? And Jan says, don't forget the museum staff, security, cleaners, gardeners, police and many more people. They are upset. Unacceptable behaviour, says Jan. And this one in says, kia ora, I am at a loss as to why Tamaki hasn't been rearrested. This seems incredible. Yeah, keep your feedback coming. 2101 on the text. Tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. The country's workforce has been stretched over the past few months as COVID-19 cases and winter illnesses dramatically increase. One hotel boss has called the endless staff shortages the worst he has ever seen, and the latest national figures back that up. Sky City alone has seen a whopping 75% increase in staff illnesses. Adam Burns reports.
The Rees Hotel and luxury apartments in Queenstown has had about 15% of its housekeepers off over winter. The resourcing strain brought on by constant staff sickness has been never-ending. Chief Executive Mark Rose says the hotel got through COVID only for a throng of staff to be struck down with influenza.
Most of our team had COVID sort of within about a month ago. But since I've been away, the influenza's been ripping through the place. And in the front office, at one stage, every second person was off with influenza. And it's a really bad one. People are off, for multiple days.
The situation meant management had to roll their sleeves up and take on other duties. Mark Rose says there was a desire to maintain standards despite being short on staff.
I worked a 78-hour week. I did 10 shifts in washing dishes, and I was doing housekeeping and driving the shuttle. Now, all of our management team have been dropping everything they're doing, stripping rooms, whatever it takes.
Other organisations have seen a massive jump in the amount of sick leave taken. Sky City has seen a 75% increase in staff sicknesses compared to 2019. Chief of People and Culture, Claire Walker, says seasonal flu has made things challenging.
Look, we're currently staggering opening times and we have reduced operating hours in some of our venues as we try and ensure that we have the staffing we need. Obviously, it is challenging, but we do need to encourage employees who are sick not to come to work.
Leaders in the sector say simply opening their doors has become a luxury for many businesses. Hospitality New Zealand Chief Executive Julie White says an obvious factor was at play.
We're actually finding that a lot of the staff who work in a venue also live together. So when one gets sick, the whole house gets sick. So therefore your whole workforce is taken out on illnesses.
Week-long absences due to sickness has become the norm over the past few months amid the Omicron outbreak. Stats NZ says for the quarter ending June, about 55,000 people had cited illness as the reason for being off work for a week, about double the numbers seen last year. General Manager for Insights and Populations, Sean Broughton, says more people were working less.
Nearly 60,000 were away or working fewer hours because of holidays in the 3 months to June 22. But that said, we had over 90,000 people who were at their main job but were working reduced hours due to sickness, and that's more than 40. That's up 40% annually.
Health New Zealand says navigating COVID-19 cases along with winter illnesses is likely to continue over the coming weeks. A spokesperson says COVID case numbers are encouraging, but additional winter pressures meant people were not out of the woods yet.
In France, authorities are introducing a new scheme to cover the expense of mountain climbers who get in trouble and need to be rescued. Climbers wanting to climb Mont Blanc will have to pay a $24,000 deposit. The BBC's Terry Egan reports.
Mont Blanc is the highest peak in Europe. Starting in Saint-Gervais-les-Bains in southeastern France, climbers can reach the top of it using the Goutier route. It's open to anyone of any ability. But in July, the authorities were advising people to avoid the ascent because of numerous rockfalls. The extended heatwave had made that way a lot more dangerous, and local guides even stopped offering their services. Dozens, though, have ignored the warnings, and Jean-Marc Payex, the mayor of Saint-Gervais-les-Bains, said that one group of visitors had even hoped to ascend it wearing shorts, trainers and straw hats. Any calamities, he pointed out, and French taxpayers would have to foot the bill. Now, the Mayor has gone a step further, ordering would-be climbers to pay a $15,000 deposit to cover any costs incurred should they need to be rescued or, in fact, die. Yes, $5,000 of that cost is to cover a possible funeral. Fears are very real too. More than 100 climbers have perished on the Goutier route over the past 2 decades. And in early July, when climate change led to ice breaking away from a glacier on the northern side of Marmolada, the highest peak in the Italian Dolomites, 11 people died there.
Let us know what you think about that and in relation to people who need rescuing in New Zealand here. Interesting. So they have to put down a $24,000 deposit before they climb the mountain just in case they need to be rescued. Should we have something like that here? And what mountains or areas should we apply it to? Text us on 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or the email address is checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. A few of you have been getting in touch about this planned protest for tomorrow in Auckland. This is the Freedom and Rights Coalition, which is associated obviously with Brian Tamaki. They're planning a protest tomorrow. Route not exactly known. This person says your Auckland interviewee, and this was the Newmarket Business Association, lost my sympathy when he argued that the protesters should avoid damaging central Auckland businesses and confine their protests to Wellington and Parliament. He should try operating a business in Thorndon and central Wellington when all the regional activists bring their complaints to Wellington. Yep, that is a good point. And on political donations in the case going on at the moment, yeah, well, maybe we'll talk about that after 6.
RNZ News at 6. Good evening. Kia ora tātou. Ko iwi Ashton tēnei. 80 residents of Levin face a second night out of their homes as a standoff with a man threatening to self-harm continues. Armed police remain on Bledisloe Street in the Horticulture town, where cordons have been in place since yesterday afternoon. A few police officers on the cordons are keeping people out, while officers with guns can be seen standing outside the man's house. Rumours are circulating that the man is armed or poses a bomb threat, but police haven't confirmed this. Manawatu Area Commander Inspector Sarah Stewart told a media conference this afternoon she couldn't predict when the standoff will end. Kathleen Clark is worried about her sister, who's stuck inside the cordon.
She's there by herself with the 3 dogs and she's just stressing about whether she's going to get blown up or not. It's a bit scary. No one even knocked on her door to evacuate her.
The police have confirmed they attended another incident earlier this week on Bledisloe Street. They say they can't go into details, but the 2 incidents are related. 25 dogs have been rounded up at the Northland property where a man was killed in a suspected dog attack. The Far North District Council says it can't be sure exactly how many remain on the loose. The man was found dead at the rural property in Panguru yesterday afternoon. Council spokesperson Dean Myberg says bulldog crossbreeds and neo-mastiffs are among the dogs taken to a shelter in Kaitaia. The search for the remainder of the dogs continues. A rescue pilot says the downed plane, which was found in the Southern Alps yesterday, is crushed. A Westpac rescue helicopter located the light plane near Mount Nicholson yesterday after it failed to arrive in Rangiora. The plane has a solo occupant and there were severe winds forecast. Westpac rescue helicopter pilot Stuart Farquhar says he wasn't on duty yesterday but saw photos and videos of the crash site. Mr Farquhar says severe weather conditions mean search teams won't be able to reach the crash site until tomorrow or Sunday. A close eye will be kept on the Ashburton River over the weekend, with flood alerts issued for the Canterbury region. Met Service says Canterbury and Otago rivers and lakes could be running high due to heavy rain on the west coast and the main divide tonight. Canterbury Regional Council says flooding is possible in vulnerable areas of the Ashburton River, and Rivers Manager Lee Griffiths says water flows could also cause significant erosion. The council's flood control team will be monitoring the situation. Week-long absences from work due to sickness have doubled in a year. The country's workforce has been stretched over the past few months, with COVID cases and an increase of winter illnesses leading to more reported staff absences. Some businesses have cut back opening hours as a result. Stats NZ's Sean Broughton says for the quarter ending June, the number of people off work for a week because of sickness had dramatically increased.
This quarter in particular, we can see that there were about 55,000 people who said their own sickness, illness or injury was the main reason they were away from work for an entire week. And that's nearly double that of the same time last year.
Sean Broughton says the number of people working restricted hours due to sickness had jumped 40% on annual figures. All of Auckland's western dams are full after the country's wettest July on record. 8 of the region's 10 dams are at capacity, carrying a total 95 billion litres of water. Watercare's head of water, Suzanne Naylor, says it's welcome news after the region's record-breaking drought in 2020. The long-range forecast for winter and spring rainfall is set to be above normal, so total dam storage is in a strong position ahead of summer. The Prime Minister's Chief Press Secretary has appeared as a witness in a trial about anonymous donations to the country's 2 biggest political parties. The Crown says the Labour Party was told a $35,000 donation was on behalf of 5 donors who paid money for paintings sold at an auction, but the money was transferred to it as one lump sum. Jacinda Ardern's Chief Press Secretary, Andrew Campbell, told the High Court at Auckland today he asked questions within the party after receiving media inquiries.
There had been a donation made, but it took me some time to kind of work out the exact nature of that donation and how it came about.
Andrew Campbell says he wasn't told the specifics of the donation by those inside the party at the time. A court in Russia has sentenced US basketballer Brittany Griner to 9 years in prison for drug smuggling. The Olympic medalist had admitted having vape cartridges containing cannabis oil in her possession when she was detained in Moscow. Steve Rosenberg of the BBC reports.
Brittany Griner had been accused of trying to smuggle cannabis oil into Russia in vape cartridges. The US sports star, who'd been playing club basketball in Russia, had pleaded guilty to the drugs charge, but had insisted it was an honest mistake. The Russian judge found her guilty and sentenced Brittany Griner to 9 years in prison. But it's unclear how long she'll actually spend behind bars. The United States and Russia have been discussing a potential prisoner swap that could involve the basketball player.
And a climate action group is appealing against a High Court decision that Auckland Transport's 10-year plan is lawful despite it not reducing emissions. All Aboard Aotearoa challenged the plan, saying it doesn't meet obligations to slash damaging gases. The group says a transport plan which doesn't reduce emissions must be unlawful. Last month, the Climate Change Minister, James Shaw, told the Environment Select Committee he's going to look at the legislation. In sport, a week after leading the New Zealand team into the Birmingham Commonwealth Games opening ceremony as flag bearer, shot putter Tom Walsh finally gets to compete. Walsh is an overwhelming favourite to win the title and bring home New Zealand's 17th gold of the Games, as Bridget Tunnicliffe reports from Birmingham.
Flag bearer Tom Walsh and Jack O'Gill are in the shot put final around 6 a.m. tomorrow. Walsh, who won bronze at the Olympics last year, will be trying to defend the gold medal he won 4 years ago on the Gold Coast. Gill could be an outside chance for a medal. He placed 9th at last year's Tokyo Olympics. The Black Sticks women will meet England in the semi-finals of the hockey at 5 a.m. for a place in the gold medal match. England are ranked 5th in the world rankings, with New Zealand 8th.
And All Blacks winger Caleb Clarke will play his first test in 2 years after being named in the side to play the Springboks in South Africa on Sunday morning. Clarke's one of several changes to the side, which lost the third test to Ireland, which also sees hooker Cody Taylor dropped for Samisone Taukei'aho. Coach Ian Foster is under pressure, with the All Blacks having lost 4 of their last 5 tests. He now faces back-to-back away tests against the world champions. Foster believes Taukei'aho will make a difference.
He's got a nice, clear mindset. He just loves the challenge and he loves the next moment of the game. And I think going into a big game like this, I really back him. I think he's shown off the bench he can make a big impact, and it's a great chance for him to stick him out in the middle.
That's the news.
So we've got a positive dog indication over here.
Country Life this week meets a hunt away with a very important job.
He's actually dug and shown us exactly where the shoe is buried.
Avalanche training on the slopes.
And now we're just having a giant game of tug, because that's what it's all about, Echo. Hey buddy, good boy.
A dog learning to save lives in the snow. Country Life, Friday at 9 during nights and Saturday morning after the 7 o'clock news on RNZ National.
You're back on Checkpoint with Lisa Owen next. Right now, the short forecast from Met Service to midnight Saturday. From Northland to Taumarunui, including Bay of Plenty in the central high country. Areas of fog again tonight, cloud increasing tomorrow. From Gisborne to Waikato, fine today, cloud increasing tomorrow with late rain in Waikato. Taranaki to Wellington, partly cloudy with isolated showers, areas of rain from tomorrow evening. From Bulla to Fiordland, rain with heavy falls in Fiordland spreading northwards today, easing to a few showers from the south tomorrow. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, heavy rain developing about the main divide this afternoon, rain spreading over the Canterbury high country this evening and elsewhere tomorrow, then easing from the south. Gale northwesterlies, severe in exposed places, easing tomorrow. Otago and Southland, scattered rain developing this evening, clearing tomorrow morning. Gale norwesterlies, severe in exposed places, also easing tomorrow. And for Kohu, the Chatham Islands, becoming cloudy, isolated showers tomorrow. The time is 9 minutes past 6. I'll have news headlines for you at 6:30.
Ngā mihi, Evie. Just a hand, police have released an update on their investigation. And this is into the suspected fatal mauling by dogs in Hokianga of a man who died. They say that they are completing a scene examination at the Pangaru property, expect it to be completed this evening, and that their inquiries are continuing. Part of this will be a post-mortem examination, which is due to be carried out tomorrow. The police intend staying at the property overnight and expect to finish there tomorrow. On the dogs, as we reported earlier, about 25 dogs have been rounded up in the area today. Police can confirm that 2 of the 3 outstanding dogs have been located in the wider area and they have been put down. The 3rd dog is believed to be severely injured and is yet to be located. Now, police are warning people don't approach that dog if they see it and instead call the police or animal management. That's the 3rd outstanding dog, which is thought to be severely injured, and that is the situation in Pangaru in the Hokianga, where a man is believed to have died after a fatal mauling by dogs. To the US now, and the Biden administration is under pressure to achieve a prisoner swap with Russia after US basketball star Brittany Griner was today sentenced to 9 years jail. Ms. Griner was arrested at a Moscow airport in February and charged with drug smuggling. Griner, an Olympic gold medalist, has admitted having vape cartridges containing cannabis oil in her possession when she was detained. But the 31-year-old told the court she'd made an honest mistake and had not intended to break the law. Here's CNN's Frederick Pleitgen in Moscow.
Brittany Griner holding up a photo of her Russian teammates as she hoped for a lenient verdict from the court. Griner shedding tears as she appealed to the judge.
I want to apologize to my teammates, my club, Gemka, the fans, and the city of ECAT for my mistake that I made and the embarrassment that I brought onto them.
The WNBA star pleaded guilty to the charges, but said she did not intend to bring vaping cartridges containing cannabis oil to Russia, where she was detained at a Moscow airport in February.
I never meant to hurt anybody. I never meant to put in jeopardy the Russian population. I never meant to break any laws here. I made an honest mistake, and I hope that in your ruling that it doesn't end my life here.
But that didn't move the judge, handing down a 9-year jail sentence to be served in a penal colony and a fine of over $16,000. Brittany Griner's lawyer clearly angry and disappointed and vowing to fight on.
We think the verdict was totally out of order. It does not correspond to what's happening and what happened, and it's totally going against the actual part of the Russian penal code.
Both the White House and the State Department condemned the verdict and the long jail sentence. The U.S. lists Brittany Griner as being wrongfully detained and says it's put what it calls a substantial offer on the table to bring both Brittany Griner and former Marine Paul Whelan, who's currently serving a 16-year jail sentence in Russia, home. The chargé d'affaires of the U.S. Embassy was inside the courtroom near Moscow and said the United States will continue to fight for Brittany Griner.
President Biden's national security team and the entire American government remain committed to bringing Ms. Griner home safely to her family, friends, and loved ones.
Brittany Griner's lawyers said she was extremely shaken by the verdict, but she too will fight on, sending love to her family.
Love my family.
As she was led out of the courtroom and back to the detention facility she's been locked up in for more than 5 months.
As the spread of the monkeypox virus gathers pace, Australia is about to take the first steps of a vaccine rollout. From Monday, New South Wales residents most at risk from monkeypox will be able to access vaccines. The federal government is also moving to get high-risk groups across the country vaccinated soon, with 22,000 doses arriving in the country in the coming weeks. Australia is now among 88 countries with cases, most of which have not historically reported outbreaks before. The ABC's Sarah Sedgey reports.
New South Wales Chief Health Officer Kerry Chant says doctors will help to identify those most at risk of monkeypox to give them access to the first few thousand available vaccines in the state next week. People will also be able to register interest in getting the jab, with more vaccines to become available soon. Nearly 500,000 doses have been purchased by the federal government, and as those supplies start to arrive from next week, Federal Health Minister Mark Butler says the most at risk will be prioritised.
I'm old enough to remember the 1980s, not just the terrifying, tragic loss of life, but also the awful stigma and discrimination that grew out of that pandemic or epidemic. And we're really conscious to guard against that while also protecting a community that has been overwhelmingly affected by this, which is gay, bisexual and other men who have sex with men. It's really important that we get the balance between recognising the need to protect that community while also assuring people that this is actually a virus that can impact everyone.
Australia has recorded 58 cases of monkeypox. It spreads through close contact. Symptoms are usually mild and it's rarely fatal. Monkeypox doesn't usually lead to major outbreaks, but recently it's spread to 81 countries that haven't historically reported cases. While it can infect anyone, it's largely been spread in communities of men who have sex with men. In the US, there are 7,000 cases, and a national public health emergency has just been declared. Professor Ian Lipkin is an epidemiologist at Columbia University. He says the declaration has come too late.
It's quite serious. We have many people who are infected. I'm sure it's much more than 7,000. It's the tip of the iceberg, if you will. People are fatigued with worrying about infectious diseases. So I think there's been a pushback. And I think this may have actually been reflected in some of the reluctance to call it an emergency because the feeling was that people wouldn't take it seriously. I think it's good now that the United States and the WHO have told people that we do need to take this seriously. And I would think that in Australia that this is something you should be concerned about as well. So you may only know of 50 cases, but I would be very surprised if the numbers were not much larger.
The US declaration comes 2 weeks after the World Health Organization called monkeypox a global health emergency. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
The dynamic of the virus has changed. It's spreading a lot more rapidly than it had in previous times.
In Australia, monkeypox has not been declared a public health emergency, but is designated the less urgent status of communicable disease incident of national significance.
Papua New Guinea's election is nearing its end, with the new government expected to be installed next week. But a Supreme Court challenge could stop that. The former Prime Minister, Peter O'Neill, has filed an application questioning if Parliament should sit when several seats haven't been declared. The ABC's Natalie Whiting has more.
A group of newly declared members of Parliament has just flown into Port Moresby. They're welcomed at the airport by supporters. Among those who've gathered is Belda Bitter. She's wearing traditional clothing from her area, including a headdress made of colourful feathers. She has high hopes for her new MP.
The service, people like him, road, school, hospital, and market for the mothers, free education, blood picking in it too.
It's a common request from many in Papua New Guinea.
Let's just see my classroom, the great classroom.
While on the campaign trail, incumbent Prime Minister James Marape called in at his old school.
My desk used to be here, exactly here.
Well over half of PNG's population is under the age of 25. But many children struggle to get access to education.
I stand here as amongst a few privileged who have gone on to do grade 11 and 12 and universities. The rest out there in society. I don't want that to be the status quo 20 years from now.
That will require proper funding of schools and teachers. PNG's election has been marred by delays, violence and accusations of vote rigging in some areas. As it comes to an end, Mr Marape is the frontrunner for the top job, which is decided by a vote on the floor of Parliament. His party is looking to form government with a 16-party coalition. The date for the return of writs is today, and the Electoral Commission says it will deliver a majority of results as legally required, but several seats will need more time to count votes. Those MPs that have been declared are scheduled to go to Parliament on Tuesday.
Government is here. Government is formed already.
But Mr Marape's political rival, former Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, plans to go to the Supreme Court first. The court application, obtained by the ABC last night, raises questions about the likelihood that dozens of electorates won't be finished counting. It argues the Parliament sitting should be pushed back. It also wants the ability for multiple candidates to contest for Prime Minister. The application will be heard by the Supreme Court on Monday morning.
It's 19 minutes past 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Many older people could never imagine their children exploiting them financially, but advocates in Australia say financial elder abuse is a growing problem in the country and one that often goes unreported. Here's the ABC's Norman Hermont.
Kim doesn't hold back when it comes to her son. A widow after 40 years of marriage, 4 years ago, she agreed to transfer her home to him. The ABC has chosen not to reveal Kim's true identity or voice.
He played his cards right. He played on a vulnerable elderly mother. He played me for a fool.
After her husband's death, Kim and her son had a close relationship. She appointed him as her attorney, and he handled most of her financial matters.
Obviously, I trusted him because he was there for me. I didn't think he's going to cheat me in any way.
In 2018, Kim says her son suggested she should transfer the title of her home to him. She says he told her if she kept her home, her aged pension could be cut off. Kim agreed and moved in with her son and his family. She left after only 4 months, with nowhere to go.
I ended up in an aged care facility. 3 nights in the car, slept with my walker. I couldn't go to the public toilets in Coles car park. Never had a shower.
Once in aged care, Kim commenced a claim to reverse the transfer. Eventually, her son agreed to transfer back title as part of a court-ordered settlement. Her lawyer, Andrew Meliunas, with Morris Blackburn, says there's no doubt about what took place.
This case did have all the hallmarks of a classic case of financial elder abuse. We see matters like Kim's, we'd be getting a call a week of sort of financial elder abuse, and we think it's increasing.
The Australian Banking Association says exact numbers about the prevalence of financial elder abuse are hard to come by because it often goes unreported. The CEO of National Seniors, John McCallum, calls it a significant and insidious problem.
It's a hidden issue. Through the Royal Commission, we picked up on elder abuse in residential care, but in home care and in families, it's alive and well.
Kim's lawyer, Andrew Meliunas, says there's nothing wrong with older parents helping their children financially. But there's a golden rule. Everyone involved should have their own legal advice.
Don't simply go to your child's lawyer. Don't just sort of do some research on the internet. It's actually go speak to a lawyer that does this type of work, and they can advise you of the risks of what you're proposing.
In Britain, events that have been cancelled for the past few years due to COVID are coming back with a vengeance. One much-loved example is the popular British Beer Festival, but the cost of living crunch is hitting the humble brew, and the price of beer made with barley is no exception. CNN's Issa Suarez reports from the UK's biggest beer festival.
After a 2-year hiatus, the Great British Beer Festival is back.
and there's plenty to celebrate. With nearly 1,000 cask ales, craft beers and ciders under one roof. It's a welcome return for an industry that has seen restaurants close and bars struggling to stay open.
We haven't seen each other socially for quite a long time, so it's just a great place to come, have a few beers and chew the fat.
But trouble is brewing, as the UK, like many countries, faces the knock-on effect of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Brewing is a high-intense production process. You need to boil your water, your malts and barleys together and mix them all together at high temperatures. So you do need a lot of energy to do that, and it's pushing up their costs very highly. There's other factors like fuel costs, delivery costs, the crisis we've got in the Ukraine, and that's affecting grain prices.
And it's not just grain. Russia's invasion has also caused energy prices to spike, rising 70% from June of 2021 to June of this year.
Everything is being affected, and if I'm honest, I don't think we're really feeling the squeeze of that yet. I think the squeeze of that really is to come in the next 12 to 18 months.
It's 5.20.
But the reality of these costs has left a bitter taste in some people's mouths, with more than 50% of the British public saying the average price of a pint, now around $5, is unaffordable. But as I wandered through the halls of this festival, it's clear the thirst for beer is not going anywhere. So how does it feel to be back after 3 years of COVID?
Absolutely brilliant, loving every minute of it, and great to see everyone under the same roof again, enjoying great cask ale.
And while the outlook may look cloudy, for now these brewers clearly still have a glass half full.
Cheers, thanks very much, cheers.
A bunch of you getting in touch about our earlier story. This is the French authorities making climbers put down $24,000 deposit if they want to go up Mont Blanc in case they need to be rescued. Robin from Parapara Umu says it's both rational and reasonable for people accessing national parks in New Zealand to buy a permit with a bond to cover possible rescue. The cost can easily be calculated by taking the last 10 years' rescue costs, including valuing volunteer time and dividing by the DOC visitor numbers for that period. DOC should also get an admin fee for the permits. And this one says, I climbed Mont Blanc in the 1970s and there were dozens then, some with altitude sickness. It's still a major mountain. A fee to climb it under today's circumstances is fine by me. And this listener agrees too. Yep, prepayment would be like travel insurance, anticipating an accident or worse and acknowledging the real cost of a rescue. Well, finally tonight, the Taranaki Mountaineers basketball team couldn't have scripted a better home send-off for retiring veteran Aaron Bailey Now, aka Auntie. Cellar dwellers last season, the new Plymouth-based side, last night qualified in top spot for this year's playoffs, dispatching the Nelson Giants 98-67, queuing wild scenes at a sold-out TSB stadium. Our Taranaki Whanganui reporter Robin Martin went along.
More than 2,000 people crammed into the TSB stadium to watch a Taranaki side claim number one spot on the ladder for the first time since 1992. And they were not disappointed as the flamboyant Air side, led by National Basketball League's top scorer Anthony Hillard, mirrored the pre-game pyrotechnics and dominated from the off. It was an emotional night for Waikato High School product Aaron Bailey Now, who is calling time on a career that has spanned 20 seasons, including 15 at Taranaki.
It was an amazing feeling, we've had highs and lows here throughout the years, and we've really, suffered in terms of, being at the bottom of the ladder, but, we're really happy with the way that the season's gone. The job isn't done yet. We still need, to win the semi-final and the final. It'll be a great way to go out.
The 41-year-old paid tribute to the sacrifices his family had made and to the Airs' long-suffering fans.
I appreciate everything that my family's done for me, and I couldn't have done it without them.
And what about the fans here tonight?
Love the fans, we're very lucky, through thick and thin, there's people that have always come out to support us, and I love that about our province. If you play hard, people will recognise that.
Head coach Trent Adam says to give Bailey Now a fitting send-off was a huge motivation for the team.
Auntie is a warrior, do you know what I mean? Like, he has a warrior mentality, and we talked about that nothing but a warrior mentality would get us through tonight. He's been through a lot over a lot of years, And same thing, he hasn't had the people around him or the resources.
Adams says having a better resource back office has helped the Airs turn around their form, as had its 3 imports, Hillard, Sean Willett and crowd favourite Javonte Douglas.
We knew JJ before he got here, so we knew we were getting a high quality person as well as a player. And yeah, we hit home runs with Ant and Sean. Like, they are great people, they fit in unbelievably well, they have great attitudes, and although they are a focal point on the floor, like at trainings, they are just the average guy.
Javonte Douglas, who played for the Airs in 2018 before heading off to win a title in Russia, was mobbed by fans after the game. Douglas says qualifying first was important.
We was laying it all on the line for Auntie. We wanted the #1 spot. Everybody came out and played with heart. We was aggressive. We knew what we was playing for. We needed that #1 spot going into the finals.
He loves the Taranaki fans.
Great, they're awesome. I love the fans. I like the energy. I love the energy. I think we got the best crowd in the NZBL.
And the fans are loving the Airs back.
Really proud of the boys for making it this far, and it's just awesome to watch.
I used to work with Aaron on the team, and he's stuck through thick and thin, and that just sums up the whole season.
Oh, well, obviously the boys are getting up this season, and there's been some big defence, and we've got some good players.
A big shout out to Auntie, because it's his last game. Yes, Auntie! Yes!
Well, this year.
We're loving it. We are loving it. Loving tonight.
I don't know.
Yeah, loving good is.
I don't know.
What's so good about it? Winning. We're winning now.
For their efforts, the Mountaineers go straight into the semi-finals of the 16 playoffs, which begin in Auckland next week.
And you can check out the video for Robin's story. We'll put it up on our webpage. That's all we've got time for. Now, the Late News team is always going to keep you updated throughout the night, so stay tuned. And remember, if you missed anything from the program, you can always find us, Checkpoint. We're on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you're having a weekend off, have a fantastic one. Kia pai tōpō. Have a great night too. We'll catch you next week.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. Kia ora tātou, Koivi Ashton tēnei. Police can't say when the standoff in Levin with a man threatening to self-harm will end. Dozens of nearby residents face a second night out of their homes. Far North animal management teams have rounded up 25 dogs at the rural property where a man was killed in a suspected dog attack. Strong winds have been causing chaos in the south this afternoon, including flights cancelled at Queenstown Airport and a camper van blown over. Met Service is warning heavy rain along the centre of the South Island could cause rivers and lakes to flood. Meanwhile, a recovery operation for the light plane that crashed in the Southern Alps yesterday is unlikely to take place until next week because of the bad weather. Those are the headlines. Our next news and weather is at 7.
Tomorrow at midday on Mapuna, we'll talk to the Supreme Award winner at the Māori Businesswomen Awards, Rini Wereta Gajulu. What's behind a new online tool where you can store information about whakapapa, and